Astrotometry log. It is March 15th, 2013. It's approximately 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is going to be a very long, rambling talk about what I perceive to be the situation with my work and the progress, basically, of human society with regard to its consciousness of its place in the universe. And this is a pretty heavy topic considering the circumstances. And as many of you know, I have aborted presenting astrotometry here on YouTube because of situations that are seemingly out of my control. There's a lot of fraud going on, and the people who are perpetrating the fraud, unfortunately, are much better equipped financially and politically. Here in the United States, fraud has become a prerequisite in order to operate within most of the established agencies and corporations in order to achieve a status of a higher up or of a position of control or influence in any of these organizations. You have to buy into the sort of pre-existing legacy of fraud. And this has been something that has been a sticking point for me on numerous fronts in numerous ways. I have a very different view of what is okay to game with and what isn't okay to game with, as far as what most of these organizations would consider to be war gaming or this sort of information gaming that is going on. And why? I have reasons. I have very, very strong reasons for my understanding and my belief. And a lot of my actions, not all of my actions, but a lot of my actions. This one specifically, the decision to withhold what I know, to take it off of the table, in a sense, is a strategic and what I believe to be necessary step because of people like suspicious observers, specifically. I mean, right now, the phenomenon with the arrival of that individual and the capacity that he's serving this agency of fraud is the biggest problem, the biggest barrier to my work. And a lot of people go, well, he's not hurting anybody. He's just, trying to do something good, and, he seems like a good guy. And those people with those arguments don't know the details. They don't understand the situation as it has unfolded here in the United States with regard to space exploration and the lies, the very, very deep lies and indoctrination that the U.S. people have undergone with regard to these issues. And so there's a lot of unconscious activity on the part of Mr. Suspicious. There is this lack of understanding on his part about what exactly he's doing and how that relates to the enabling of these darker, more sinister influences, which are his masters. And I realize that he doesn't see it that way. I realize that he doesn't understand. But facts are facts, and as those people who have invested all of this seemingly frivolous money and energy, human energy, in the activity of perpetuating and gaming with this information and this fraud. I just have to kind of step back and go, yeah, well, it looks like I'm at the center, and it looks like you guys are going to swirl around, and that's going to be the way it is for a while. And that's very difficult. That's a very, very difficult position to be in. And for those of you who don't know, who don't understand the sort of the legacy that I'm referring to, I grew up on a small farm in Floyd's Knobs, Indiana. And I moved there my first year. And the radio and television towers for the Kentuckiana area, Louisville, Kentucky area, are situated on top of the hills that I was dwelling in. And the television towers that broadcast my favorite TV stations. When I was a kid, I watched a lot of television. These towers were outside of a glass door behind the television, about eye height. And so I grew up bathed in a sort of artificial energy that was the consequence, that was seemingly the side effect of these devices. And, you know, because of that relationship that I have with these other energies, I've developed a sort of understanding of the underlying nature of the mechanics that the people who designed those devices didn't know about the nature of our reality. And so, in understanding how the solar cycle progresses, for example, you have to have a solid understanding of the nature of time and space as it is relative to the observer, as to the observational mechanism. And so the person who is observing the solar cycle in their time-space is the area, the matter on the Earth that is the place where these, you know, temporal disturbances manifest, is a traveler in a system that uses or infuses or vicariously carries the traveler, the seeming Newtonian or quantum mechanic observer through the space-time. And so the possibility that a particular observer might be able to navigate to a particular place wherein these things manifest in order to experience a different reality, a lack of continuity with their own lineage, with their own past, doesn't enter into the consciousness of the mainstream individual. This has been hidden from society by the people who are invested in the solid reality of the Earth as being this sphere that's floating in space, 93 million miles from this spherical fire that is made of hydrogen, that is undergoing a nuclear reaction, more or less, end of story. It spins on its axis, it orbits the sun, and these are lies at this point in the game that I'm playing, in the war that I'm fighting. These are lies that are intentionally being perpetrated and manipulated using people like suspicious observers. And the government has been following me personally, my personal experiences and my personal work with these phenomenon from a very early age. And so this Fargate phenomenon, the Fargate legacy effect that you see referred to on astrotometry now as the sort of center stage for what shouldn't be happening, has replaced the videos on hypertime, the videos on the grand illusion, and the analysis of those phenomenon, which were recorded under duress. Now I know from whom. And these people who are trying to police this information, who are trying to deceive the deceivers, The people who don't want you to know the truth about what the show Stargate actually is. The people that don't want you to know that on some level, Stargate is a lot like Watergate, involving other sorts of people for other sorts of purposes that they have used this spying technology on in order to try to attempt to gain the upper hand on information that crossed the religious boundary when they first started doing it. And so they knew about the relationship between these events and the phenomenon that I was working with back in the early 90s when they made Stargate. And when I didn't respond in a way they could have predicted to the movie when I went to see it after they'd asked me about it, creating this character, this sort of future possible me, they changed their tactics and other people got involved with it. The people who made Farscape came to me and tried to get me involved with that project. They were trying to actually steal the source of the information for Stargate. But they had to do it in a very clever way because they were going up against the US military and the intelligence apparatus that had also been corrupted by this knowledge, this information. And so as the legacy of this long battle, when I discovered that it might be possible to accurately forecast earthquakes, when I ran into Matthew Siegel on YouTube, I saw a potential avenue for a sort of revolution, for a sort of reckoning for what has been going on in my life and in the lives of the astronauts and the workers at NASA, where the person who takes the stage is just an idol of the truth. And in the biblical term, in the biblical sense, this sort of behavior is inherently reprehensible. And it was never my interest in acquiring this sort of fame or infamy, as a lot of those people want to argue. But most of the people who are arguing at this point think that landing an object on the moon using a rocket as propulsion is not only possible, but that it actually happened. But in reality, it's not even possible. It will never be possible. It is physically impossible to take a rocket to the moon. And the people who've told you differently, the people who are lying to you about things like the messenger and making a tribute to the messenger on YouTube, this fictitious space probe that went up to explore Mercury. These people who've done this, who are doing this, instead of telling you the truth, they did something like Prometheus, or the continuation of the legacy of John Shepard in Mass Effect, or the continuation of the adventures of John Crichton in the numerous forums where the fan fiction is written, as the people who are listening and paying attention to what has been going on for a very long time continue their folly. And this is a very, very difficult message to deliver to these people that are so big and powerful, seemingly, from the perspective of someone like me, who is just an individual, a single individual, with almost no real friends, with almost no real cohort, because the people who are the cohort have all signed their souls away to the devil, because deception is their game, is their way of doing business. And as they try to build a concrete tent around this video and the reality of the situation, their efforts will not only fail, but they're dooming themselves. They're dooming their life. The parody on Einstein that was made by these people, Peter Weller, Jeff Goldblum, a lot of other very, very famous actors and actresses, quote unquote, were involved in telling this story, Buckaroo Banzai, across the eighth dimension. And, you know, they have this caricature of Einstein, Lord Warfin, who was locked up in this asylum. And, you know, there's this line in the movie that's incredibly dark, and it goes, "Who are we today, Albert Einstein?" And, you know, that's to the viewer that doesn't know that it's an unauthorized story about the real life of Albert Einstein. That becomes a very dark, deceptive ploy that is used to hide this information from the people who are watching it. And done so in a way where the message itself, you know, has the backing of whatever future movie studio or organization wants to pony up the money to continue the Buckaroo Banzai franchise. And so from that perspective, from the perspective of someone who is able to read these codes, who doesn't want to participate to the point where he has intentionally, as a strategy, forsaken the knowledge of its existence, taking that same warlike strategy that they've taken with me, trying to obscure the truth about who I am and what I am. By taking that same strategy, I do it in a passive way. And so, as a sort of truth, as a sort of secret truth, and as an incredible irony of the real story about what actually happened during World War II with the Nazis who were accused of these horrible crimes against humanity before their fall, these people have opened up Pandora's box, because the things that they've actually kept from humanity were not only necessary information, were not only, in some sense, prerequisite information before attempting something like a moon landing story. They have brought these people quite literally to their knees. And so there was a replication problem in the Stargate series where all of these replicators were attacking. And you've got these other people, these other interests that found out about this, that realize, that feel the changes that the divine is moving humanity in, that is resisted and torn up by this investment in the space money mafia. And so, growing up in a time that is sort of unprecedented in respect to the changes that our society and our culture must endure. And I'm not saying that anybody else has to do anything. I'm just saying it's going to be what it's going to be. And if you don't know what you need to know, you're going to make the same mistake as Mr. Suspicious. Tesla told Walter Russell to hide this information for 1,000 years. Similar information, not exactly astrotometry. I think if Tesla had seen the data, the information, the discoveries that I made, that wouldn't have been his position on it. Because we now have a very clear scientific route to move the establishment away from this dangerous view of the solar system and of our reality. And as these people continue to be flown in planes into these disturbances as they're happening without their knowledge, hello, Mr. Suspicious, you drug war veterans out there who are now being used by your government as guinea pigs and having your souls basically ripped out and put into these devices devised by your government. Where's that going to take you as you fly to your next convention? You can say, well, we could avoid these things. We could avoid these anomalies. All the real stories about the nature of the Bermuda Triangle have been covered up. The the relationship between the coronal mass ejection and Hurricane Sandy will be forbidden for anyone in a position like Mr. Suspicious, and people don't need to know this information. Bullshit. If Tesla had seen this, he wouldn't have said something so stupid to Russell, if he actually did. Gaming, pawns, tools. Now, I don't think this is the case with Tesla. These people didn't have their appetites whet for what was at stake in this war at that point. World War II, they knew that the Ark of the Covenant, hello Indiana Jones, hello Harrison Ford, whoever the hell you really are, was a very, very, a pearl of incredible price. Should we take it back to the failed movement in the last election? And the new Pope looks like cloak and dagger to me. Oh, look how benevolent. Look how benevolent, and let's ignore the truth about who Jesus really was and just show a person doing the sorts of things that we want these people to do for us. So yeah, fuck you, Vatican. You don't want to tell the people about where you got your Jesus story and what it actually means, what it actually refers to, and, you know, accept the truth of the proper translation of Moses? Yeah, just let TJ Laser fuck the Krogans with his genophage cure that is completely phony. Yeah, tide's turning there, baby. It already has, I see. And so while some of you idiots, and I'm going to have to start saying that affectionately, while some of you idiots really just didn't know what you were getting yourselves into, the other of you who've been playing along and have gambled on the soul of humanity are going to reap what you've sown. And I will, as I've said in the past video, or the log that is not being presented today, compound with the divine forces to defeat you and destroy you. I mean, it's not the thing I like to do, destroying pretty people that are talented and all that. But if that's what it takes to continue the path that we're going to be on anyway, in better time and in better condition, then that's what I'll do. It's not what I want to do. I want you to come out and tell everyone that the moon landing was faked. And I don't mean your next door neighbor. I mean, get on your fucking stupid media horn and tell everybody that the moon landings were faked. That it will never be possible to travel to the moon. That no craft that has ever supposedly left orbit has been able to send back any pictures or radio signals. That's fiction. You're gambling with God. You're going to lose. What's up there is bigger and more powerful than you can ever imagine. And even though you can't see it, even though you can't understand the relationship between that coronal mass ejection and the time-space folds that move the astrotome to connect to itself through time, and how that relates to the orbital inconsistencies of the planets, and how it relates to the upcoming comets, that you can't understand that is not my problem. And it's not something I'm going to have any sympathy for you on in any sort of monument you might have lied to yourself in believing that you built to me. So fuck you. And I'd rather say that than see somebody put a bullet in your head. Maybe you'll straighten up your acts. Bad actors. Bad actors. FBI? Fuck you. Stupid fucking whores. Goddamned idiot whores. Quite literally. Go have somebody else create your fucking distraction. Find another fucking Batman. Assholes. Idiot fucking assholes. Yeah, you don't want the average guy to know. Because he'd fucking kill you. Justifiably. Are you listening to that? Downing Street? You think you don't have a press? Somebody take away your freedom of press? Asshole idiots! Yeah, you're incredibly clever. Oh, beyond belief, incredibly clever. You really think that this is gonna fly? Without blowing up in your island? In your face? On you? From above? Yeah, Hitler was an incredible threat with his V2s, but you had no fucking idea. You seemingly had no fucking idea. And if there is a Mason over there who knew a little bit more than Albert Pike, who understands this stuff a little better, clearly there is. And you know, you wanna tell the story with something like Prometheus. I think that's noble. Yes, that's noble. That's not going to save you. It's not going to protect you. I am not going to protect you. My story and how you spin it is not going to protect you. Mr. Scott seems to have done a fairly good job with his treatment of the prime thing that we all face, which is death. We will all die. What remains will be something beautiful or something hideous, depending on how that thing is impregnated. I have an incredible respect for the effort that went into that. And I don't blame people for being deceived. I don't blame people for taking things, commandeering in a ostensibly legal way for the purposes of solving an incredible problem, for the purposes of dealing with a very legitimate threat. You haven't done that in a thoughtful way. You've done that in the way that's the legacy of the problem itself. Michael Rainey was ill the day the earth stood still, but he told us where we stand. And Flash Gordon was there in silver underwear. Claude Rains was the invisible man. But then something went wrong for Fay Ray and King Kong. They got caught in a celluloid jam. Then at a deadly pace, it came from outer space. And this is how the message ran. Science fiction, double feature. And I don't know if it was a strategic decision on the part of the people wanting to make Captain Kirk look so ridiculous. The real Captain Kirk looks so ridiculous, aka Timothy Leary. Answer for Timothy Leary, dearie. I don't know if that was your intention. It seems, from my perspective, that you're trying to deprecate the reality yet more in the view of the observers by making it look like, oh, we're in control. When you know you haven't had the slightest fucking clue what you were doing and why. Time changes it all, doesn't it? The future changes it all. Some people will be prepared, some people will not. Those people that are buying food, well, I don't know if that's going to help you. Depends on where you are, I guess, huh? Trying to provoke that out of me too, huh? I'm not going to answer that. I'm not talking about your body, I'm talking about your soul. Don't know the difference? Not my fucking problem that you haven't taken the time to figure it out.